All right, good evening, everyone. If everyone grab their seats, we'll get going for this evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Peninsula Clean Energy meeting for Thursday, April 28th. We'll start with the roll call.
Great. If you could please state your name after I read your jurisdiction. County of San Mateo.
Dave Pine.
Carol Groom.
Great. Town of Atherton.
Bill Whitmer.
City of Belmont.
Greg Scholes.
City of Brisbane.
Lori Liu.
City of Burlingame.
Donna Colson.
Town of Colma.
Joe Silva.
City of Daly City.
Judith Christensen.
City of East Palo Alto.
Larry Moody.
City of Foster City.
Gary Pollard.
City of Half Moon Bay. Town of Hillsborough. City of Menlo Park. City of Millbrae. City of Pacifica.
John Keener.
Town of Portola Valley.
Jeff Elfs.
City of Redwood City.
Ian Bain.
City of San Bruno.
Marty Medina.
City of San Carlos. City of San Mateo.
Rick Bonilla.
City of South San Francisco. And City of Woodside.
Daniel Yost.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. So as we've done in the prior meetings, we've asked board members or alternates who haven't attended a meeting in the past, if there's anyone in that category. Not sure. Yes, Judith Christensen is a first timer.
First timer.
So if we might take a moment to have you sworn in.
Yes.
We have our counsel standing by.
Hi, how are you?
All right, let's do
Great.
this.
I'll ask you to stand and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your full name.
I, Judith Christensen,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United
the States
States
of America, yeah, and the state of California
against all enemies.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
That I will
done
bear
this
true
before.
faith and
that I will
allegiance
bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United
to the
States
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of
and the
California.
Constitution of the state of California.
That I will take this obligation freely
I will take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion,
And that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good to have you here, Judith.
Feels good to be in such an esteemed group.
We'll see how many meetings we go until we don't have a new member. So we'll now take a motion to set the agenda and approve the consent items. However, before we do, I actually like to make a recommendation. On the minutes, I think on the minutes, we probably need to revise the section about the appointment of the executive committee, because we had the board decided to kind of provide that people would be elected annually and you could serve for 2 years, but then you'd have to rotate off so a new city would have another opportunity. So actually, I guess I'd suggest we just maybe pull those minutes and we can approve them the next time. Okay. So very good. And otherwise, with that removed, if we could have a motion to set the agenda and approve the consent items.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, was that a motion by Mr. Keener and seconded by Mr. Pollard?
Bain.
Okay.
Motion by Bain.
Motion by Bain.
Either way.
All right. Motion by Bain. Oh, okay. Well, we've set the agenda for the evening, but I went a little too quickly with the public comments. So we would take a moment here to go back and hear people who have comments on items that aren't on the agenda this evening. So we have three. Michael Clausen. Go ahead.
Follow Diane.
Okay. Diane Bailey then, go right ahead.
Hi, good evening. My name's Diane Bailey. I'm with Menlo Spark. And congratulations, here we are one step closer to delivering power for PCE this fall, and it's very exciting to watch it unfold. I just wanted to comment that it's great to have the cities have this option to potentially enroll all of their customers into 100% clean power, whether that's 100% renewable or carbon-free, I'm not really sure. And I just wanted to note that there's not very much clarity on the time frame for cities to express interest and find this out, and it's very difficult for the cities to consider this choice without having the cost data in front of them. And so I'm wondering if either later on in this meeting or at a future meeting or through email, there could just be some clarity provided for the cities who want a cleaner portfolio, what the process looks like ahead and how they can make sure they have all of the data they need on the cost and what the base offering is going to look like before they can deliberate on whether a whole city, including all of their business and residential customers, should be enrolled in 100%. Lastly, I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that I'm told that there are some bids that came in that can provide 100% carbon-free power at a lower cost than what was spec'd in the RFP. And I think this is very exciting, and I hope that these bids get full consideration by this board. I think there's an issue that they may be considered off-spec, and there was some commentary about the bids needing to be apples to apples and meet the specs that were laid out in the RFP and in the Excel spreadsheets that were, the worksheets that were attached to that. And I want to request that any bids that come in that are cleaner and cheaper, even if they're considered off-spec and maybe not apples to apples, that this would be really a leap forward and a tremendous opportunity for PCE, and I hope they get your full consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Just to respond briefly, as everyone I believe knows, we've really since the beginning with the tech study held out the option or potential option for cities to start with 100% fully green as a default product. However, we do need to get we will put out an email with some more specifics about addressing some of the points you raised. And on the ESPs, in fact, today, a number of folks in this room spent all day with the ESP potential candidates, so much more information to come on that. Mr. Clausen?
Good evening. My name is Michael Clausen. I'm a Menlo Park resident and a member of Menlo Sparks Advisory Board. I want to encourage you not to do business with Shell Energy North America. On April 16th, the San Francisco Chronicle reported in a cover article that a Federal Energy Regulatory Commission judge found Shell Energy North America guilty of fraud and market manipulation during the California energy crisis of 2000-2001. His decision must be approved by a FERC board to be finalized. Lawyers from the California Public Utilities Commission are also pursuing Shell Energy on the same issue. Shell Energy North America currently procures electricity from Marine Clean Energy, and the company is likely to pursue a contract with Peninsula Clean Energy, but I encourage you to look long and hard before you make develop a contract with them, because I don't think it's appropriate to do business with a company that's got that black cloud over its head, and it won't look good for Peninsula Clean Energy to start out on that kind of foot. I also want to second Diane Bailey's recommendation of giving cities the option of going for 100% clean power as their default, and give them also the opportunity to have their citizens opt down to a lower percentage if they decide personally not to go for 100% clean power. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. And our next speaker would be Lisa Altieri.
Hi, thank you. And thank you again for all your efforts to make this happen. So I really would like very much to see PCE be successful. And so I've taken time to talk with a number of different people in the industry and listen to them and really hear what their input is and their recommendations on what is really important when you develop a program like this. And I spoke to a senior resource planner at the City of Palo Alto utility where I live. Palo Alto has their own municipal utility, and so like Palo Alto, all of the cities that have municipal utilities across California, they're already doing what you're doing. What you're doing is a subset of what they do, but it's still the same services that they provide as well. And so they have a lot of experience. They have deep experience in this area. And I wanted to share with you a couple of things that I learned in these conversations. Basically, the core of it is that there are 4 main components that are important for power services. It's your scheduling, coordination, your credit support, portfolio management, and procurement support. That's sort of just really broadly. But basically, there's a bucket of services that you need in order to make this successful. And what the municipalities have found is that they all work with agencies like NCPA, ACES, or TEA to provide these services to them, the same services that you currently are going to need to operate your CCE effectively. And so what they found is that it works well for them to contract with these agencies. These agencies are mostly not-for-profit or government-owned, and they have the fact that they service many different cities at the same time has allowed them to develop really strong analytical services and data management services that you'll need to be able to have really good information to make good decisions about how to run this program. And so the suggestions that I've heard is for you to stop for a moment, take a moment now before you go too far down the road of how you set your structure, and talk to some of these munis and see how they do what you're going to do and see what they recommend. They have a lot of best practices, they have a lot of experience, and they have a lot of things that they can help. So I brought a letter with a couple of the specific recommendations that they make, which is specifically the most important ones are to separate out your contract for services from your power supply contracts so that you have impartial input from that. And then also to keep all your power supply services preferably together in one contract so you can get the best practices from the companies that provide them. So anyway, I have a few copies. If I don't have enough, to ask that someone please distribute it.
Yeah, thanks for your comments. We'll make sure that all the board members get a copy.
And also, I support Diane and Michael's comments about considering the 100% carbon-free option. Thank you.
We have anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak on an item not on the agenda this evening? Okay. Seeing none, let me just start with a couple of comments. Earlier this week at our Board of Supervisors meeting, Kirsten Pringle and Gordon Tong were recognized for the incredible work they've done to get Peninsula Clean Energy to the place that we are. I think many of you in the room have worked with them. If you haven't, you're missing out because they are an extraordinary contributors, and they were recognized by the county as exemplary employees for the work they have done to date. So I'd like to give them a little round of applause. They work as a team, and we're very fortunate to have them behind this effort. Also, for those who didn't see in the news, I just wanted to point out that the community choice irrigation movement, it continues to grow. This week, Marin Clean Energy announced that they added 7 local municipalities to their efforts. So they added Lafayette, Walnut Creek, Napa, American Canyon, St. Helena, Calistoga, and Yountville. So it's a significant addition to their enterprise. So prior to the addition, Marin served unincorporated Marin, all 11 cities in Marin, unincorporated Napa, and the cities of Benicia, El Cerrito, San Pablo, and Richmond. So that was 174 customers, 174,000 customers. The 7 new municipalities brings an additional 94,000 into the fold. So congratulations to Marin Clean Energy for the expansion of their program. And then finally, too, I just want to take a moment and recognize that all the hard work that a lot of people on this board have been doing in between meetings. We've had 4 major initiatives going on. We've had CEO interviews. We've had the data management interview team. We've had the energy service provider interview team, and we've formed an executive committee which met. So I may miss somebody, but I'm just going to read out a few names here, and others have volunteered, and we're going to make sure you get involved too. But Jeff Alf, Pradeep Gupta, Daniel Yost, Carol Groom, Rick Bonilla, Rick DeGoya, John Keener, Wayne Lee, Gary Pollard, Cameron Johnson, and Charles Stone. And my apologies if I missed someone who hasn't served in one of those 4 capacities, but that's a lot of work by a lot of people in this room, in between having 2 meetings a month. So very grateful for that contribution. So those are my remarks for the evening. The bulk of the meeting, as you know from looking at the agenda, will be our marketing and communication plan, which is, of course, critical to our rollout. We'll have some updates from the staff, and we'll reserve a minimum of half an hour to discuss the CEO process and potential terms of employment. So that will come in closed session. Mr. Eggemeyer, I turn over to you.
Oh, anyways, I just really want to introduce
Test.
Circle Point. And this, just like to introduce Circle Point for the marketing and communications plan presentation.
Hello, thank you for having us here. I'm Ray Quigley, Communications Director at Circle Point. I'm joined with Sarah Seward, our Art Director at Circle Point, and Susan B. from Green Ideals. I represent the Circle Point team. We're thrilled to be here. We also have Interethnica for Multicultural Communications. And I'll be presenting our marketing and communications strategy and plan, which was included in the agenda packet. So I'll just go over the highlights of that plan and share some of the visuals that we've developed to date, and we'll be presenting with focus group testing. So we really want to start with a clear understanding of the goals of the marketing program. And a key part of evolving the PCE brand for customer communications and engagement is developing something that is seen as a trustworthy brand, but also easily recognizable, a household name throughout San Mateo County. And we'll be doing that through a series of multiple touch points with making information that is very accessible and clear and accessible to all. The opt-out rates targets that we've set are, we think, realistic, looking at industry, what's going on in other programs, but also something that is ambitious. So opt-out rate for default 50% renewable, less than or at least 10%, gaining at least 5% residential enrollment for the 100% renewable option, and at least 1 to 2% business enrollment for the 100% renewable option. So these are the goals of the program, the marketing program. And in order to reach those goals, we understand the importance of getting a certain level of saturation throughout the county. And so we'll do that through a multi-channel campaign. Here you'll see just the priority channels that we'll be engaging all of our audiences with. And here, just giving you a snapshot of the program launch and the Group 1 enrollment. We sort of mapped out what is really important for the program to successfully launch. So working backwards from that launch date, you'll see here the key notices, both ahead of and beyond the launch, as well as when we're really going to start our advertising. So we're going to do a soft launch in May and June just to get a baseline of communications out ahead of the noticing, so people are aware of the brand, and really a focused advertising effort through July and October with digital, and then mid-August to mid-October with print and outdoor. And here I have Susan to talk about some of our key strategies around issues and lessons learned from other CCE programs.
Thanks, Ray. So I'm Susan Bierzacudek with Green Ideals. We helped to launch Marin Clean Energy a long time ago and have worked with them for years since then. And part of the lessons that we learned are really key strategies to figuring out how to build this into a program that feels trustworthy and familiar. And we wanted to look back and see where were the speed bumps. You know, one of them was about reliability. People were very afraid that the new service wouldn't be as reliable as what they had always lived with. There was vulnerability. If I leave PG&E, will I be penalized when the lights go out, when there's something wrong with the power lines? Big question that people were concerned about. And also, there's an issue of trust. I know you guys have probably heard it, and we're still hearing it in Marin. What is a government agency doing in the power business? So trying to explain the true facts of the program in a way that develops positive emotional expectations on the part of your ratepayer audience is really key to this succeeding. Cost is always an issue, and we need the cost to be reasonable. We don't really want to lead with cost because there are bigger values at play here. It's this, you know, it's not, we're not doing it only because of cost, but it's a huge concern for people. So explaining it in a way that makes sense in relationship to the bigger picture and the values of climate change is a really kind of delicate balance that one must strike. There's the issue of value. You know, I know it's the right thing to do for the planet, but is it worth it to me if it costs more? So finding ways to express that so that it really touches people in the heart and they feel it. They realize why it's important in their lives, not just understanding how the program works, but why it's important. Also, convenience, you know, will my service be interrupted? And just telling the facts, being as clear and simple and calm as one can in order to let them know that there is absolutely no perceptible difference that you'll see except for the better. It seems really too good to be true to some people when you explain it all to them. So trying to help them realize that even though it seems too good to be true, it really does embrace the same values that most of these people hold. So those are the things that we're going, oh, altruism, I missed altruism. Lots of people say, wait a minute, what about all those guys in the trucks who are going to lose their jobs? So, you know, explaining away some of those things. We have a great advantage in having some leads to follow and seeing what the best practices have been and where the speed bumps have been along the way.
And so a key way that we will really learn from these lessons that other programs have afforded us is to really think about the target audiences here that are unique to San Mateo County. And so we've done that as part of our communications plan, thinking about the customers at large throughout the county, really everyone with all 20 cities enrolled, it's everyone, as well as the targeted audiences that really have unique interests and concerns around this. So thinking about different multicultural groups, seniors, low-income residents, as well as the potential advocates and champions for the program. So the early adopters, solar customers, and then our partners through this, the special districts, electeds, and of course the commercial businesses. And so we've segmented our communications strategy, and according to these audiences in our communications plan, here's just a snippet of one of the audiences, and thinking about their unique motivations and developing preliminary messages that would appeal to those motivations. And so this will really inform the targeted collateral that we will develop, the custom communications per audience, and this is something that we're testing with the focus groups. And now I'll tell you a little bit more about those focus groups. They're happening right now, actually. There's the Chinese audience has a focus group this evening. So that's what Lisa from Interethnica, our multicultural partner, is doing this evening. So the goals of the focus group are really to test the messages and creative, but also the general awareness around CCEs and their attitudes around clean energy, and how much they're willing to pay more for renewable, if they are, sort of those types of reactions and impressions. So we're doing 4 90-minute monolingual focus groups, and we opted to do monolingual because we get a lot of rich information from that, especially with limited English proficiency communities. And so we're doing this week Spanish and Chinese. On Saturday we're doing an English focus group, and then next week the Tagalog. So we should be getting really fantastic insights from that process. The recruitment that we did reflected the diversity of the county. Interethnica overlays the census data with her recruitment strategy so that she is getting a nice cross-section that is based on, of course, ethnic diversity, but also age, income, both renters and household owners. So you're really just getting a good mix and a diverse mix of perspectives. We'll be testing, we'll show you in a minute, Sarah will, the product sub-branding, so the different product levels and the identities that we've developed. We have a few options that we've developed with the team that we'll be testing, as well as the preliminary advertising. And then those messages that I mentioned and the attitudes that we were talking about. So it's really interesting what comes out of this process, a lot of great insights that helps us develop targeted messages with different groups, but also helps us refine our messaging strategy. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah to share some of our creative.
Yeah, I mean, since the focus groups are getting a peek at the creative tonight, we thought it made sense that you might get a little look too. So the first thing we're going to look at are a couple of different options for the electricity product sub-branding. So what these are is building out on the system with the existing Peninsula Clean Energy brand architecture. And the goal is to create a clear identity for these different products that the program will offer that is exciting to our customers across all the different demographics that Ray was talking about, and generate a little bit of excitement about the choices and options that they have. So in these various examples, this first one, bright green and ultra green, we're using the symbol of the leaf with the electric bolt to kind of make it really clear, even without reading the typography, what this project is about. And that's present in every example. The next example is Eco Start and Eco Max. We're using consistent color and typographic treatment that's on brand on all of these. And the third one, Eco 50 and Eco 100 with Peninsula Clean Energy spelled out. So when we test these with the focus groups, we'll kind of be seeing which ones resonate with people, what they feel is snappy, what's immediately intuitive to them, and we'll go with the recommendations that come out of that collective research. Another aspect of the project that's going to be changing is the website. Yes?
What you just showed is, just for clarification, that is a logo?
Sure, it's like the visual word mark for the product sub-brands. So the 50% renewable and the 100% renewable.
My only concern is that I know from my marketing background that it's very costly to change a logo. And we've talked ad nauseum, I promise I won't go into it this time, about that we want to move from 50% up. And is it dangerous to marry ourselves to 50% on all of our branding and marketing, and when in X period of months possibly we move to 70%, and then we have to go back and we have to redo stationery, redo marketing materials. That's my only concern in putting that in.
That's an excellent question, and I think that there's a couple of different ways to look at it. The numbers are kind of important in the names so that people from all different cultural backgrounds immediately recognize the percentages of renewable that's in the product. So that's why the numbers are present in every one of them. I think, 50 is the current baseline that we're aware of. So I think that just depending on how the project moves forward, changing that is something we might have to live with. Although, in all honesty, these particular sub-brands aren't going to appear on tons of printed material, is my understanding. They're going to be on the website for sure, and they're usually going to be partnered with the Peninsula Clean Energy logo as well. So that's a bridge we would just have to cross when we come to it.
And so updating the number wouldn't be a huge effort?
No. And it certainly wouldn't be like a creative effort. It would just be swapping it out. But we are trying to keep the project in many senses kind of digital. And also we understand that things are going to change as the project moves forward. And all of the research that we're doing with the focus groups initially isn't the end of the research by any means. So we plan on tailoring materials for this program throughout the life of the marketing and advertising effort.
So will this logo be on business cards, stationery?
I wouldn't see it being on business cards or stationery. It might appear on a mailer or a enrollment noticing as an option, which, since we have phased enrollment, we'll have an opportunity to print materials in multiple passes. So updating something like this wouldn't be a tremendous deal since we'll have to reprint anyway.
Okay.
By the time we do our enrollment notices, we'll know what percentage we have, so we can update it at that point.
But we've also established that even if we launch with X number, it will change over a period of time. So I just wanted to establish that we weren't painting ourselves into a corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great question. I hope we are changing it soon. Okay, so one of the other things that's going to be evolving in the creative aspect in terms of the communications is the website for Peninsula Clean Energy. So what you're seeing in front of you is kind of this diagram of the existing website's structure as proposed for a 2.0 refresh. So there's quite a few new pages. There's a lot of new interactivity. We really started the baseline. We pulled all of the content from the website, and we're redoing the messaging and the content to be updated for a new consumer-facing kind of feel. And all of that content will also be being translated. We've included a language switcher, which is a polylang functionality. It's going to make it really easy for different speakers of different languages to access the content from the site in a way that's really natural and custom translated for them. So it's not like a Google Translate option or anything like that. And we're also going to have some customer-oriented structures, so you're really seeing a revamped commercial and residential customer pages that'll include rate calculators, the service options, and of course the opportunity to opt up, or if they really want to opt out, and also the opportunity to become an early adopter. So all these different options for our customers will be really easy for them to access. We'll also be posting the board meeting materials as well as other meeting materials through a robust calendar and events section, and a robust get involved section will make it really easy for people to sign up to stay up to date on what's happening and get more information. We'll also be building out a resource library offering for the customers. It'll have a variety of different things. One thing that has been discussed a little bit is a local business directory, potentially featuring businesses that do opt in for the service. So it's something we can offer to our commercial customers as a boon to say, hey, thank you for participating in this program, and we can feature your business under the business directory on the website.
What about like a status as we move into implementation?
Yeah.
A status that says, A, how many people have signed up, because that gets people to think, okay, fine, all these people
It's
I'll
safe.
go to. And then also, how that's changing our carbon footprint. That would be something also to identify so that people feel good about what they're doing. The other, since we're asking questions, I don't know if you have a chart. I didn't see the metrics you talked about, but some of the numbers in there were lower than I would have thought they would have been. And then secondly, going over your pack, the focus on the schools as far as, telling the kids and the teachers talk about it, that's one key thing. But for many of the local school districts are autonomous, and so they're not under our jurisdiction. And so focusing in on those school boards and the principals and the superintendents is very, very key to get their buy-in, because they use a lot of energy, and many of us, even on other boards that are doing services for the community, are experiencing that the schools want to do something by themselves and on their own. And so I encourage you to spend special focus on that and special focus on those school boards so that it will happen by itself as opposed to making it very, very difficult. So but if we could understand the metrics, maybe you could come back on that. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we do have some discussion at the end about measuring effectiveness. So I do want to speak to your first question about a status element. We've been talking with Kirsten and Gordon a little bit about developing a dynamically populating content module on the homepage that shows how many enrollees we have and participants, and how it's showing the amount of greenhouse gas emissions saved going up, and even the economic impact going up and up. So we want to show these items that you're talking about in a way that's dynamic, that every time people hit the homepage, they're seeing these numbers, really showing the success of the program going forward.
And we're just trying to get the technology to work out.
Yeah,
So.
okay.
Yeah.
It can be time delayed.
Yeah, it's a custom solution, but we know we can build it.
And we can create social graphics at milestones
Absolutely.
too, to share through Facebook and other channels.
Yeah, absolutely. To make people that are also a part of it feel good about being a part of it.
Well, if you could color a map that shows your jurisdiction,
Yeah.
that would see, people would also feel more comfortable. Anything to encourage people that are looking to say, hey, my neighbors are doing it, so
Absolutely.
it's okay. I mean, that does encourage the extra 10% to come across.
That actually segues right into the next thing I'd like to talk about, which is the.
Can we just have
Oh,
one more?
I'm sorry.
Since people tend to read left to right,
Mhm.
you have, I would put early adopter first, opt out, and opt up and opt out on the right. Because you want people to read
Great
through
suggestion.
good stuff. And
Great suggestion.
And put opt out, hide it a little.
Yeah.
Bottom right. Yeah, like a far away, you know like that unsubscribe button? Right.
Yeah, it's
exactly.
That doesn't go anywhere.
Oh, thank you.
The
Yes.
bottom buried in the terms.
Unless it's Chinese, then it's.
Oh, yeah, that's
do the
correct.
opposite.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Most read left to right.
Okay, great. So your point about neighbors and knowing that your neighbor's doing it kind of leads right into the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is the advertising campaign creative. So I just have a few slides that show some sample creative of what's going to the focus groups tonight, and it's been translated for each of the focus groups. I'm only going to show 3 pieces, but I think there's actually 5 that are getting tested. These examples are just using some stock photography, so don't let that turn you off. We're doing a custom photo shoot with actual residents here in San Mateo County, so real people. And the campaign concept is this idea of the first-person testimonial, getting people's ideas in their own words. So the people at the photo shoot will be doing kind of mini interviews with them to sort of get this organic content from them, because neighbors trust their neighbors. And the whole idea behind this is that the content that comes out of this builds a brand that's composed of all the voices of the community, not just a brand voice. So we feel like by doing this, we can create a lot of trust and some real authenticity with the program, which will help it be more successful. So the look and feel of these different materials will be applied campaign-wide, and it'll be tweaked, depending on the feedback that we get out of the focus groups. And it'll start with the initial customer enrollment materials, which I think Ray is actually going to talk a little bit about the scheduling of.
Definitely, yeah. So one of the communication challenges that we've been talking about and developing an action plan around is the phased enrollment. So we created this simple timeline graphic just to show the different phases of enrollment, the different groups, and who comprises that group. And some of the communication strategies we've talked about to address that is to really develop intuitive content on the homepage, that it's right at the forefront with some good messaging about the different groups and why the phasing has been set up that way, that it is equitable, so that it isn't just city by city, that a good cross-section of the county can participate, and really just driving people to that early adopter program so that they can sign on at any point and they understand that as well. There was some great information that Susan got from her experience on MCE, that they have since gone to a neighborhood by neighborhood enrollment, or rather than doing it city by city, it can still be a cross section of the county, but really encouraging it neighborhood by neighborhood. So still clustering it a little bit. So I understand that's something that is being considered here. So that's just some feedback that she got. The other thing about the early adopter program that we've talked about is having a communications pipeline. So once somebody signs up as an early adopter, really guiding them along so that they become the champion and advocate for the program as well. So following up with a letter and a thank you letter, and some of the promotional items that we're going to be developing. So just thinking about that so they can help spread the word peer-to-peer with their networks as well. Exactly, yeah, guiding people to that choice. So then the media plan is obviously an important piece of this. So if you can see, it was also in our communications plan, our preliminary advertising buy that we're really going to focus from really the digital advertising we're focusing, starting testing in May and through the summer. And then once people come back from their summer vacations, really through mid-August through mid-October, doing the broader broadcast and transit and print ads. So we have, the digital ads, Google and Google AdWords and Display Network, which are very targeted, geo-targeted, but also by keyword. The YouTube pre-roll, which will feature our broadcast video ads as well. And then the Facebook is where we're going to be testing and optimizing our ad creative, which is a great way you can really target by neighborhood. So we'll, depending on the data that we get from the account information, we'll really be able to zero in and target based on each group, hopefully. And then Pandora is another great way to target. Our Comcast cable ads are going to be, we're going to have about 6,000 spots, 800 a week, and resulting in over 400,000 impressions. And they will be on news networks like CNBC and CNN, sports networks like ESPN. We're also going to get coverage during the Giants and Warriors games, as well as lifestyle networks, HGTV and Travel Channel. Then we're going to focus our transit ads, which is another way to really geo-target by neighborhood. We have 30 transit shelter ads, so we'll be able to, we've had great success developing translated in language ads and targeting them within neighborhoods of communities that speak that language. And then the print includes both mainstream and ethnic media, including the print and digital editions of their publication.
I have a question.
Sure.
One of the groups, one of the target audiences is the Filipino population in Daly City, and yet none of the Filipino press is there.
Okay. I'll make a note of that and talk to our media buyer. We have flexibility. This hasn't been purchased yet. So I'll make sure that we look at that and add that.
Those of us who live in that community may help in getting some articles. We've already written some articles that have been in the press.
Terrific.
You know, like in the, where you don't have to pay for it, part of the newspaper. Letters
That's
to the
great.
editor.
Yeah, and that's great feedback. Well, this, like I said, that hasn't been purchased, so this is perfect time. We also had our partner Lisa from Interethnica has a great anecdote for trying to. It was, I think, the statewide energy upgrade California. They were having trouble reaching the Filipino population, and they determined that by looking at, I feel like it was one of the radio shows, like a competition. Yeah.
And they were able to buy ad space on Pandora and get a tremendous reach with the audience.
So they were targeting people listening to that singer. It wasn't even in language, that people, so that was, we will look at strategies like that and involve her in that. So thank you for that feedback.
In addition to this, we know you guys have a lot of newsletters or other things in your cities, and we ask for as much as free advertising as we can get. All you have to do is contact us, or I'll connect you with Circle Point. We really hope to kind of utilize the resources that you guys already have.
Oh, definitely.
I think there's a question here.
Two quick things. One, since we're adding media, the almanac in the South County.
Okay.
The county almanac.
Yeah.
And then secondly, you mentioned there's Facebook ad buys. Will there be sort of a viral social element such that when I become an early adopter, I can broadcast it out on Facebook or Twitter or wherever?
Yeah, definitely. We'll have that as part of our strategy. We're developing an editorial calendar that maps out the Facebook content, and that's a great input about early adopter having a badge that people can share. So thank you. Yep.
So in the messaging framework, you talk about the different groups that you're targeting, the different audiences. And I sit on the library board, so I noticed that library users are not part of that, and that kind of captures, a lot of different people.
Okay.
In addition to not just the school districts, but I would suggest, reaching out to including the community college district and any local universities.
Great, because I think can't you on libraries change the homepage? Yeah, the default homepage. So maybe we could do something like that.
Right, and to also have just flyers posted in the library so that when people walk in, the people who work there can be familiar with it enough to tell people more about it.
Great.
And then there needs to be a link on every city's website
Definitely.
that goes back to this link here as well as the county. So we need to just make sure that all that happens.
Why don't we jump to that slide?
We got a couple.
Perfect.
I think we have a couple more questions.
Okay, yeah.
So most people will just stay, will move over to PCE just out of inertia. And then there's some percentage that will reject it regardless of whatever message you send, right? Because they, as somebody said before, they don't want the government power. What I'm wondering is, so it seems to me like the people that you're trying to reach is a pretty narrow segment of the population. And I'm wondering, who do you think what's the profile of the marginal customer who's like, well, I may opt out, I may not opt out? Do you have a sense of that? Because the marketing seems to be kind of very widespread, comprehensive, but it seems to me that the target that you're trying to really send the message that, hey, this is actually a good program, is probably a very small minority of county residents.
Right.
And so who are those people and how are we reaching them specifically?
Definitely, yeah. We want the print and the outdoor ads to really be that sort of general, because it is going to reach many people, and we want that to be appealing and motivate the general public to read more and learn more. But in order to reach the people that are most likely to want to receive that information, digital advertising is perfect for that, because you can target by people like green moms, people that already have an interest in these types of initiatives and activities, friends of people that like other organizations. So there's a lot that we do with our targeting that brings in a good mix of likely to be interested parties.
But,
yeah.
Which is that even though it's narrow, it's sprinkled throughout every different segment we mentioned. Like that kind of median user, even though it's sort of a narrow segment of the county overall, it's in every part of the county. Like your local communities and your advocacy communities and the senior community, and so there's people in every one of those segments that fall into the narrow category that you're discussing.
I'm not, if I might just follow up, sorry, I'm not sure that I necessarily agree with that. I mean, do you think that it's essentially random among all the different demographics in the county, or do you think that there's a profile of a person who's more likely to opt out than another?
That's who it is, right?
Okay.
There will be those people who are suspicious of anything that's different or anything that's government run. And if we can reach the people who influence those people, who just by being better informed and they've discovered something cool and they want to talk about it. So that's part of the strategy.
To your point about the influencers, I completely agree. And in Menlo Park, I think probably also in Atherton and many of our areas, the influencers are the older population who do not hang out on Pandora or Facebook or these places, and they actually speak English, and there was no English media listed that anyone in Menlo Park is going to have access to. So it is critical that you, at minimum, advertise in the almanac, because otherwise you will not be communicating with the people who, trust me, are very active and will lead opinion in our areas.
That's great.
Our target audiences are actually based on who we believe, I guess, as a team might be the people that are opting out. So seniors is one of them, I think, because they just tend to be a little more active or alert. Also, a lot of them are on fixed income, so they'll be more price sensitive. And then going into that, also just low-income residents in general, especially people on care or fair programs, they might be worried that if they stay with our program, they'll lose their low-income discount, which is not true. So we have special messaging that we'll do for those customers. And I also think solar customers might be one of our target audiences, just because they'll also be worried that, oh, I already have solar panels, how does this affect me? Or do I have to sign a new contract if I go to this new program? We do have specific messaging and plans for all of them, and Circle Point can talk a little more to the specific messaging for seniors. We plan to have a senior buddy program where we actually train people to go into senior homes and senior centers and talk one-on-one with our senior residents, and also have special print that's actually in large format that makes it easier for them to read.
I agree with you, and they're not the old enough to be in you know, they're your very active, intelligent 70-year-olds who blog and have neighborhood meetings, and that's why I want to make sure we don't miss.
Definitely.
And something I think that's not also, this is just our large marketing campaign. Us as the PCE team will also be continue to do our kind of more grassroots outreach. So right now we're doing a lot of tabling at your guys' Earth Day events. We're starting to do a lot of community meetings. And we also plan on continuing doing the kind of one-on-one meetings with Rotary clubs or at senior centers and those kind of things. So there's kind of two aspects to the outreach plan. And tonight's a little more focused on the bigger picture.
All right, since we're giving feedback.
Can I get a chance?
Pradeep, you'll be next.
I think we are focusing a lot on the residential customers who are big in numbers but small in real use in terms of numbers. I'm thinking that more vulnerable community is small commercial, small stores who have been buying power from PG&E forever, and they use those electricity expenses as part of the business expense. So in order to convert them into a new source of Peninsula Clean Energy, where they might say it's more important for me to get reliable electricity rather than trying to make the change and then face all the changes that might be required. So would you be focusing particularly on the small commercial customers who out of inertia might just forego this option completely in terms of how to satisfy their questions and how you can convince them to make a little change and make a big difference?
Oh yeah, did you want to say something? Sure.
So some of the ideas that we have about reaching out to those particular audiences are around really framing being part of PCE as being the choice for leadership of green-minded businesses, and they are leaders in their community, and acknowledging them as such and showing them that this is like a no-action thing they can do to be a leader. Making sure that, you know, we have a calculator on the website that shows them what the bottom line of signing up for various options of PCE means for their business, and showing that it doesn't necessarily have to be cost prohibitive. And making sure that we develop certain promotional materials that are specific for them, like a little badge that they can put on their company website that identifies them as a participant in this program, featuring them on the business directory of the PCE website and highlighting them under the message, you know, shop green, shop local. Making sure that we develop little window clings for them that they can put in the front window of their business that identifies them as a leader by being a part of this program. And, you know, just making sure that we're reaching out to the businesses of all sizes too, not just the smaller ones, but the larger ones as well.
Thank you very much.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of presentations to the Chambers of Commerce, and we can plan on continuing to do that. We've also worked pretty closely with SAMCETA, and we're still talking with them to see how they want to participate moving forward. They're going to hopefully be in our Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. Oh, and we held a lot of one-on-one business with our largest businesses in the county before we even decided to do this. And so at least some of the largest energy users in the county were informed, and we got their opinions on it before.
Yeah, and I would like to just emphasize that these larger customers are the ones which will make overall benefit everyone on PCE, because they will lower the average cost to everyone, because these larger customers have such loads which will make it easier and cheaper for us to buy electricity. I didn't say that.
I think Ian had a comment.
Mm-hmm.
A couple comments, actually. So I agree with Cameron and Catherine in terms of the focus, and if you're focusing on publications where people are going to read it and talk, their neighbors and friends in Redwood City, it's a Spectrum magazine.
Okay.
So if you want to send around the list, maybe each of us will have additional suggestions like that will seem a lot more focused and targeted on who you're trying to reach. My question earlier, we kind of moved through pretty quickly through this, but the sub-brands, was there a reason why you didn't want to use what Marin did with light green and deep green?
with PCE, what we're really trying to do with the branding is create something that's, trustworthy. So it's kind of similar, like people can tell that it's in the field of clean energy and electricity, but we want it to be distinctive. And we don't want there to be any confusion that this program is that program or vice versa. So the approach that we took to the sub-brands was to try to be relatively obvious with it, but a little bit distinctive so that, it would be easier also for us to potentially trademark those sub-brands and keep all of that clean in terms of the legality.
I mean, I like the leaf with the lightning bolt in it. I think that distinguishes the brand. But I also think there's something to be said for consistency. So if someone moves between Marin and San Mateo, that they know what light green and deep green means. And that could become an industry standard as opposed to every county has a different sub-brand.
We've definitely had discussions on the pros and cons of both sides of this quite a bit. And, we'll also probably get some input from the focus groups, too. If they're saying, I've seen this and I've seen that, why isn't this the same? Then that could potentially alter our strategy. So thanks for that input.
But I guess that leads to another question, which is you're only presenting them with the 3 sub-brands that we saw here tonight, correct?
Correct.
So they're not even going to know about light green or deep green unless they've lived in Marin County.
Yeah, unless they've heard about it one way or the other.
Right. So I think we missed an opportunity there personally. But, I don't feel strongly about it.
If you guys decide to get serious about that, the only thing I think you really have to do is call MCE to make sure they're okay with that.
There is a benefit to being autonomous, though, for the reason of the different percent renewable. Then you're not tied to what they're doing necessarily. Yes.
So in our town, we're unique. We could go grassroots, door to door. It's a really small town. But I'm worried about the unincorporated towns. We have a town next to us that's twice the residency as Colma. So who's going to take ownership of making sure those residents are fully informed and get the enthusiasm like us and my other counterparts in Colma are going to just go out and try to get 100%. That's our goal. But the unincorporated cities, who's going to take ownership to try to reach out and get them?
Well, I think the county will, but also through our advertising, we'll make sure that we reach them as well and noticing. But the county will. Yes.
I just want to change, not the subject, but here's a down the line question. Do you have any plan to re-engage those that opt out?
That's a good question. Kirsten, what do you think about that?
We haven't thought about it, but it's definitely worth discussion.
Yeah.
My immediate feedback, I would just be afraid of pushing people too hard, since we definitely emphasize the aspect of choice, that it's a consumer's choice. I don't want to be chasing people down the line, making them feel pressured into it, but it's always something that we can discuss.
I'm just looking at it not the day after they opt out, but maybe it's 6 months. Some plan only because out of sight, out of mind. Maybe they talked to their neighbors, they didn't think about re-engaging, or nobody talked to them, that's all. So I just want us to not forget that once they're opt out, they're done. Yeah. They may in fact want to come back, and we just need to touch base with them. That was my only.
Sorry, on that subject, one thing we should consider doing is to set up the call center so that when people call to opt out, the first thing that we do is make sure that they understand what they're doing. Because we found in Marin that quite often when people were calling to opt out, they didn't get that they were they kind of had things turned around. They misunderstood the whole situation. Yes. So explaining it to them as a first step could stop a good number of opt-outs. But through time, Marin has gone back and with campaigns specifically targeted to deep green to try and re-engage people, either opting up or getting people who opted out altogether.
Okay.
We don't want to. We want to let you get to your presentation, so I don't know how much more you have.
I only have 2 slides, and
Okay.
this is one of them. So this is really how you can help. So it sounds like we have a lot of interest and enthusiasm in getting the word out. So that's amazing. That's wonderful. And so we're going to help you do that. We're going to develop a partner toolkit with collateral, social media content, posts, graphics, web, e-blast content, and be able to share the video so that we can get the word out through your channels, because we know that you have those really robust channels to reach your constituents. And Another way that you can get involved is participation in our photo shoot. We are looking for participants, and so let Kirsten know if you would be interested in starring in it.
A lot of good-looking people in here.
Or in the audience, we're looking for anybody.
Yes. So we'll put out a call for an invitation. This is also another way to get the word out about the program, is to invite county residents to participate in the photo shoot. So we'll be putting that out, and we'll share that when we share the toolkit. But as Kirsten mentioned, in-kind advertising, we'll always appreciate that and can, would love that, anything that is available. So if you can think of anything, that would be great, as well as your local newsletters. If there are other opportunities that you can think of, we're all ears. We have obviously have the countywide, thinking about everyone and needing to reach that and the priorities around that. But if you have great ideas, then we'll do our best to accommodate them with the budget that we have. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned schools. Maybe you can get a bunch of teachers together, because a lot of them are always looking for projects.
Yeah.
And one thing is that kids really influence the parents.
Definitely.
Parents.
Mm-hmm.
So I would suggest something like book covers or something you
Yeah.
can just give to the schools and
Back to
cover
school.
all their books with, Go Green, Go PCE or something like that.
You could also put together a Girl Scout or a Boy Scout presentation where you come and talk to them about what this is and teach them about renewables, and that would make a nice little packet that you could.
Definitely. Great.
A question about the opt-out rate. So it says that one of the objectives is to maintain an opt-out rate below 10%. So how does that compare to the ones in Marin and Sonoma?
Great. So that's a perfect segue for our last slide, which is about evaluation. And so we can talk about that opt-out rate, and I'll look to Kirsten to get her to respond on where those numbers came from specifically.
Susan and Sean might be able to talk to this a little more. I believe Marin's opt-out rate is still around low 20s. Yeah, so like 21, 22%. And then Sonoma, I believe it's 15, 16? No, it's even lower. About 11%. And Marin Clean Energy's newest territories are even lower than that. So we're trying to actually be below kind of the industry average. We have the advantage of being a wealthier community, environmentally conscious community, but also we just want to have a high goal for ourselves. So I think 10% should be the maximum amount of opt-outs, the ceiling, not the floor.
It may not be there may not be a direct relationship, but when Marin opened up to Richmond, they had the lowest opt-out rate ever, and that was when we did the testimonial ad campaign of people. We took community leaders, people that were recognized in nonprofit organizations and churches and people like that, and had all of our ads feature those folks talking to the folks that knew them. And that kept the opt-out rate incredibly low. Whether there's a direct correlation there or not, we don't know, but we're going to do a similar kind of campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned talking. Are there going to be some promotional videos of community members that people can then share, say, on Facebook?
Well, what I meant by this was talking in the ad, having a
Okay.
testimonial, but they went on to feature each of those ad spokespersons as on a page on their website to tell the story about their business and why they were in favor of the program and what it meant to them. So I think that those kinds of spokespeople can be used in many ways.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, we are planning to do video that will go into both the broadcast and the YouTube ads, but can be shared and shareable with you. Yeah. Great. So that's one data point, an important one, of course, of how we'll evaluate the success of the program, but also the opt-out and opt-down rates, depending on each community, and then the digital ad optimization and the paid and earned media ROI. So those are things that we're going to look throughout the life of the campaign and make adjustments in midstream. That's just something that we do to optimize and divert funds as needed to really focus and get the greatest return on the dollar. Then social engagement, but the viral nature, but also just the conversations that are happening. That's something that we listen to in real time and get some great ideas for new content that can inform different ideas. So, for example, when we did the plastic bag ordinance in the city of Sacramento, we saw on some of the social media posts, people were saying, oh, wait, this isn't a single-use plastic bag. I use it to pick up my dog's waste, and so that was a great, we listened to that and were able to create a series of graphics that dispelled those misconceptions and sort of created a dialogue around it. So that's the type of like real-time tracking and evaluation that we do, but also it informs our process ongoing. Web analytics is the same way, as well as email metrics. So thinking about, opens and click-throughs and what people are clicking on, where they're engaging, where we're losing people. So those are things that we do throughout. Yes.
So have you guys ever thought about or done, because I'm a little bit of a competitor, like a little competition among all of our cities so that like maybe the lowest opt-out city got like a $10,000 award for green projects in their city or something fun like that?
Yeah.
I mean, you have a budget, it's just another form of advertising, but it puts the onus
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the individual cities,
Yeah.
And our city was on that Cool California Challenge. I mean, they were on
about.
it. We took 3rd place. We beat San Mateo, sorry, Rick. Our little tiny
Friendly
town beat you. All right.
A competition within this group, maybe.
But it's kind of a
That's
little,
great.
little award for green projects. And you can talk to schools and things,
Yeah,
be
I
cute.
love that.
Yeah, but don't forget, we have some smaller cities, so it might be you might
Wow.
want to have it based on a percentage
No,
of
no,
the
no,
population.
it's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
opt-out, it's the rate. It's the city.
Not the number of.
No, it's not the aggregate number. It's the city, it would be the city with the lowest opt-out rate.
Okay.
And maybe another little bonus for the city that got the highest 100%.
Great idea. Yeah. Sure.
So, comment first. I think it would be a great opportunity to put banners up where people gather in our Little League baseball programs, our soccer programs, our parks and fields are a great place to where communities gather and you can engage in the conversation while you're engaging and supporting your children out there on the playing field.
Yeah.
And the other is there a reason why we're not advertising on talk radio shows? I mean, most of us are stuck in traffic at
Yeah.
some point of the day.
Yeah.
And it's a great place to engage in the conversation.
Or get a spot on KQED or
Right.
something.
Definitely. We have advertised on KQD in the past, and you can't focus it on the region, so it would be for the whole Bay Area. But that is something we're looking to get additional advertising dollars, so that's something that we can consider with additional money, for sure.
There's some stations for the millennium groups that need to be considered as well. I mean, it's one thing just be on 560, but there are some other stations out there where people are engaged. They enjoy the music, whether it be soft music, but it also creates dialogue and conversations about things that are going on in the Bay Area.
Great.
You guys you're doing advertising and you're buying advertising, but the cheapest advertising is an article.
Yeah.
So if you get KQED to do like, hey, what's going on in the Bay Area with green energy, and you talk about Marin and Sonoma and San Francisco and us, and you do the whole thing, then you don't have to worry about targeting a specific audience.
Definitely.
Same thing
I was gonna say,
with the newspapers.
Yeah, something very similar. I think that's part of your earned media
Exactly.
strategy, and that any of us could probably be spokespeople. So if you want to
Perfect.
leverage us to talk to KQED, KGO,
That's great.
even
That's
the
good.
TV stations, we'd be happy to be part of that.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
That'd be great. We're definitely capped at a specific outreach and communications budget. So we know that there are a lot of things that we could be doing. It's just finding what the most effective channels will be. So we'll send around an email around to get ideas from you about additional local or regional communication channels, and we'll try to go through them and prioritize what we think will be the most effective along with your guys' input.
Definitely. And earned media is a part of our strategy. We're going to have a media page on the website with assets, and perhaps quotes would be a perfect thing to add to that. So thank you.
I just wanted to make a cautionary note here. In our city discussions, when we are going through the process of Peninsula Clean Energy, there was a very significant feeling in the community that they are being pushed into the clean energy without having a choice, that they have to opt out. From their understanding, they were being pushed into the program without their accepting it, and then they have to do something in order to opt out of the program. That was a feeling. And we assured them that no, the program is designed such a way that you will have ample time to make that decision after you get the information about what the program is all about, et cetera, et cetera. Although we were just joking about it, about making that on the website, hiding the opt-out, I want to make sure that no way at all, it will be very backward step if we give them an evidence that we are trying to somehow play tricks with that. So I want to be absolutely clear that we should have a clear conscience that if somebody wants to opt out, they should not have any more problem, any more difficulty in doing that than somebody who wants to opt up.
Absolutely. Definitely. We will be encouraging people to opt up and choose the more renewable, but of course we wouldn't hide that or make it. That's about accessibility, right? So definitely.
So we have to send out 4 postcards, is that right?
Yes, for each enrollment cycle.
Do a couple before.
Or not postcards, but notices.
Yeah, what's it, 2 before, 2 after?
Exactly.
Maybe we do 3 before, potentially?
And are you guys doing them as well? I mean, is this all part of the same brand, or is this going to be separate?
Yeah, I had a similar question, right? I mean, those notices are going to be...
That's the primary communication that people are going to get. So.
The first one.
And obviously, they need to be very clear so people understand. And it's highly likely it'll be their first, time they've ever seen it. But on the other hand, presumably, it's not just black and white font. There's some kind of marketing, there as well. So.
Yeah, so the enrollment notices will be content-wise. We'll work with Circle Point to write it. And so it will have our branding on it and information about the program. There is certain things legally that we have to include, such as our terms and conditions, which is not so pretty on a postcard, but we have to do it anyway. There's also a lot of kind of customization we can do with it. So we're thinking that the very first enrollment notice people get is more customized to the customer. So we'll have data on customers or whether they're a part of net energy metering, so whether they're a solar customer, whether they're currently on CARE or FARA, a low-income resident. And so we're going to send letters instead of just postcards, so our first round of enrollment notices, to kind of capture those target audience with customized messaging. And after that, we're thinking we'll do more of just regular postcards with information about our program and then the terms and conditions.
And I mean, are we thinking of it as a marketing opportunity?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
And and you guys are going to design it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Okay. I think it would be, as we think about this stuff, just looking at it all collectively, because
definitely.
I think the direct mail is really going to be what people see. $90,000 of paid media is going to be a relatively small amount compared to somebody getting something in their mailbox.
And so we're currently evaluating a number of strategies around that. So looking at best practices in direct mail, like what's on the envelope, the language, the messaging, so that we get better open rates so people aren't just throwing them away.
But the first one will be a letter that gives them clear information about the program so that people aren't misled. And but the series of enrollment pieces really is intended to develop some positive emotional expectations, so that when they're actually presented with it, they already know that they're looking forward to it and don't feel tricked in any way or forced.
The first enrollment notice will go out in July, just so everybody knows. And that kind of explains why our timeline for marketing is why it is. We'll have a soft launch in May, but we're having our full launch of advertising in June, which will align when our call centers are open. So we don't get 1,000 calls, Gordon, Carolyn, and I, every day about the program. And then customers will get their first enrollment notices in July. So it's all tied up to kind of be one after another.
Yes.
So I saw in one of the slides talking about the early adopters being in May and June. So how does that work?
Yeah, so the idea,
letters don't go out until July.
so we want to have that on the website so people are able to sign up for it if they express interest, because we are going to have advertising start ahead of the notice so people are seeing it. So we want people to, when they click through to the website, if they are unsure when their enrollment period is, or if they see that they're potentially not going to be in that enrollment period, easily can just sign up if they are enthusiastic about it. And then, for the groups that aren't going to be in the first round, we will make sure that, that they can easily sign up as well. So that is going to be promoted in our materials. We're going to point people to that page directly. So I could see in those postcards and collateral having a place that directs people to that.
clarify, because I'm thinking if we're all out there making face-to-face contacts with our friends, neighbors, and relatives, we talk them into doing it.
Yeah.
Once they've made the decision, it's like, don't give them any time to think about it.
Exactly, yeah.
Let's do it.
Like, close the deal.
And
Commission.
get them signed up,
You're
yeah.
gonna be in
So-
line for commission here.
For the municipal accounts, when will those go through the process?
Oh, I think I pulled
Will
up
that
the
be
wrong one.
in a randomized way, or will they all be early adopters?
They will all be early adopters, phase 1.
One thing we might want to consider is to check with Noble about the possibility of embedding in the website an opportunity for somebody to scroll down or type in their address and find out what phase they will be enrolled in.
Yeah.
And then that gives them the option to go to early adoption.
I like
That
that.
would help clear up what will be just by default a little bit of confusion because of the nature of the phasing.
Good idea.
I like that.
I bet you can do it.
So, on the calculator, I guess, and this has come up in some discussions, especially since the fact that we've decided to go in and people are opted in and they have to opt out. When they're opted in, PG&E is giving us a fee associated with it. So we need to be upfront and honest and clear with what that fee is, even when the calculators are done. Because if they go ahead and get a bill, then there's going to be a lot of angst and thinking that we hid something, much to your comment,
Right.
that, hey, you told us it was going to be cheaper or it's going to be the same, and now I got a $100 bill. What goes on with that? So I think that keeping track of that and making sure that we're clear, I think would keep us all in good stead.
Definitely. And so with the calculator, of course, that will be considered, and we'll take that very seriously. Anything else?
Okay, lots of feedback, marketing, wait, we have one more, you had one more comment, Mike?
So we're getting ready for the festival season. There's a lot of events coming. Cinco de Mayo is a couple of weeks away. How do you turn it off? Anyway, Cinco de Mayo is coming up. We invite you all to come to East Palo Alto for our event. And but how do we access the promotional materials that you have available for cities, and how what's your process? How much time in advance do we have to give you in terms of securing personnel as well as the materials for those events?
So if you need personnel, it would be ideal to know like a month and a half at the minimum, because we have tons of events already on our calendar and there's only 3 of us to do it. We're also we have a really great handful of advocates, we have a great group of advocates that we work with, and we're planning on doing an advocates training program where they can maybe table more on Peninsula Clean Energy's behalf, and they'll just be trained on the talking points and information about the program. For the outreach materials, we always bring them to the board of directors meetings. We have them here. So if you think you need a lot, like hundreds of an item, it would be good to know a couple of weeks before, and we can bring it to the meeting, or we can just drop it off at your city.
Okay, is there any opportunities for high school students or college students to get involved in that training component you're talking about?
Yeah, definitely.
Many of them can use it for community service hours and those types of things.
Yeah, I really like that idea.
Good idea.
Great.
All right, well, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
The marketing is like art, right? Everybody has an opinion, everyone's got an idea. So, but it's exciting. It's very exciting to see it starting to take shape. Okay, we'll now turn to some updates from the staff.
Yeah, I have 3 items to share with you tonight. The first one is the first Citizens Advisory Committee meeting, and that will be next Thursday. So it will be the first Thursday of the month, so that being May 5th. And that will be over in Belmont at the 400 Harbor Boulevard. Is that where we used to meet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Where the Citizens Advisory Committee had met before. So we'll be starting those meetings first Thursday of the month, next Thursday, May 5th.
What time, Jim?
tentatively set for 7. It might move around a little based on the advisory board members' availability.
Okay.
The agenda will be out on Monday.
The second request I have, or the second item to share with you, is a request. And I think Lori Lou brought this up here a minute ago relative to the cities and the towns participating in the first phase. And so our consultant, PCEA, is beginning to kind of understand the demand or the electricity that we need to buy. So they've been able to look through the list that we get from PG&E about all the customers, and it's some of the meters are easy to identify, and what we're finding is that some of them aren't. So what we really need to do is we need to reach out to you and the staff at each of the cities to find the specific meters and accounts that you have currently with PG&E, so we can put those into the right group, so that we know that we're purchasing and that we're for this first launch will include all of the cities. So we're going to be needing to reach out to you to really find the point person, the contact person. If you happen to know that tonight, before you leave, if you could let Gordon, Kirsten, and Carolyn know, that would be really helpful.
Are you looking for someone in our Public Works division?
Whoever is really handling kind of the payment of the bill. You know, you receive the
billing? Yeah.
PG&E bill. It has your meter number on it, your account number. That's what we're after, because then we can sort by, find those within the PEA information that we got from PG&E, so we can really separate out the cities and towns.
And you may have multiple account numbers too, based on your facilities. So.
Yeah.
We'll send out an email to remind you.
Right.
Yeah, we'll send
exactly. John?
What about school boards and so on, agencies like that?
That's a really good question. That might be something that we probably would want to put onto the agenda for the whole group to discuss and direct the staff in terms of the outreach, the efforts, the contacts to those school districts if we want to, if they're going to be part of this first launch.
They're probably characterized, it's based on how they're characterized in the PG&E fee schedule. They're probably small, medium commercial-ish, I'm assuming. So we'll have to talk to them to also get their account numbers if they want to be in phase 1, if they're not already going to be in phase 1.
Okay.
But are you saying more to make sure they buy into this, or are you just identifying?
No, I'm not concerned about them buying in. I'm just
Concerned about adding
there's-
them into the
Well, yeah, what you've,
group?
I think the question you've raised, it's an important one, which is, we've talked about in phase 1, including all the municipalities.
Right.
So are we going to include schools as municipalities? And, there's kind of pros and cons. And one thing that I would be a little concerned about is, they're becoming to it brand new. Like with the cities, we're all here, we're all engaged, we're all kind of in the loop. So it would bring a little extra complexity. And then a related question, which I think which one of the board members raised at a prior meeting, was this idea that cities might want to start out their municipalities, their actual city accounts, not necessarily their residents and businesses, but the actual city government being 100% green. And that's another thing we're going to need to get direction from you on. And I imagine in some cities, perhaps that's a decision that the city manager could make, because probably the incremental cost is not terribly significant. Maybe in others it might need to go to the council. So we'll capture that question for you too, because I think it was a good idea that if the city wants to set an example by agreeing to pay a little bit more for its own account, but again, that's a decision each city would have to make in a relatively short time frame.
And it is budget time, so.
Well, like we've already completed.
Oh, that's true.
We've already completed our budget, so it's, I think that's that's the question, is where does it come in the budget and where do we have it?
Yeah, well, it might work out really well, because
We're
plenty of
making
it.
budgeting.
So we'll get an email out to you capturing that request too.
For the schools, my understanding is special districts. So anybody considered a special district has the ability to opt in or out on their own. So it is their decision. And that also includes wastewater districts, so water districts who actually use a lot of water, a lot of electricity, as you might imagine. So we'll also be reaching out to them. Fire, yeah.
Right, but the specific question is, which of all these various entities are in phase one? We know the cities are in phase one.
Right. And then the last item that I want to share with you is relative to a request that the Office of Sustainability is making before the Board of Supervisors on May 10th. And it is essentially what I would refer to as kind of boiling it down to kind of the bridge monies that are needed for phase 3, as well as kind of the startup cost for the new office of the Peninsula Clean Energy. The CEO, the real estate, the location where they'll be, and kind of all of their efforts relative to all that. So we're once again asking the county to make a loan, and I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. And then if you're interested in following that, the Board of Supervisors agenda is published next Thursday before the Tuesday hearing, and we'll be on that agenda, and you can take a look at the request and the staff report at that time, just to give you an idea. And then at the next meeting, I can give you an update relative to the board's decision. That concludes the county staff report.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Eggemeyer? Go ahead.
One question. What is the amount of the loan?
So we have, let me just back up. Phase 1 was for $300,000. We went back before the board and asked them for phase 2 at $800,000, so we're at $1.1 million right now. Phase 3 is a request for $400,000, and then the additional is an additional $1.4 million. So we're asking the board for $1.8 million to help with the bridging and getting started. Our proposal for this is essentially to be able to turn this over to the JPA and the staff sometime in the beginning of 2017, January, February, or March. That's what we're proposing ultimately with this kind of bridging aspect. We're also, in the same staff report, we're also asking for the allocation of some monies that will be the collateral to the banking partner that we're going to be involved with. So far we have 2 banking terms that have been submitted to us. We're waiting for the third bank to submit their banking terms, so we'll be able to look at the terms and sheets relative to the procurement of energy. And so we're asking the county to essentially put up the collateral relative to the loan that we would help with, or we would be receiving from the banks for the startup as well.
Thank you.
And okay.
Jim, I just wanted to ask you, I roughly calculated in my head it's about $3 million in total when you put it all together. How does that compare with the startup of MCE or other previous CCAs in your experience? Is it about the same amount that we are doing it, or more or less?
I don't know, but Sean Marshall's here. She might be able to share some insight relative to your question.
So the accurate answer to your question will depend on how you do an apples-to-apples comparison around what line items are included in your sort of programmatic startup costs versus those line items that show up on your books as operational costs. So I'll give you the information with that as a major caveat. What it sounds like Jim's laying out in terms of the approximately $2 million is less expensive than Marin Clean Energy, certainly less expensive, and on par, I would say, with Sonoma Clean Power. Theirs came in at 1.7, but there were a number of expenses within that 1.7 that were carried over and on the sort of the JPA operations side. So I would say that you guys are right in the, right on that middle path.
And is there a question, Wayne? Or?
I was going to ask, since we are going, this is a green project, are we going to house the offices in the green building, or does that matter to us?
The location of the office is yet to come. You know, but you need to get the CEO in the door here first. But it's something we'll.
Can I add a small anecdote on that? So when I was on the MCE board, it was a much more contentious issue in Marin at the time. And so we required the building that we rented office space from to be an MCE customer as a condition of our lease.
For you.
Deep green.
So we will be agendizing soon. I'm not sure if it's the next meeting or the one after that. A very more comprehensive look at the finances, and the budget through launch, and the financing, for the initial power purchase, and get into all that in some detail. So that's to come. And I don't know if we have a date, or it's soon.
Soon, yeah. We wanted to return to this board after we've been to your board, the Board of Supervisors, to be able to discuss kind of what allocations you've made or decisions you've made as a whole.
But at a high level, the county is loaning the funds for these operational expenses, and there'll be a whole other transaction with banks to obtain the financing to buy the energy. So it's kind of bifurcated in that way. Okay. Any board member reports or thoughts before we adjourn into closed session? Not adjourn, or I guess we will adjourn into closed session. We did it on the consent. We're actually going to revise the minutes to make them a little more accurate of the nature of the executive committee. Any comments? Okay. Well, the board then will meet in closed session. So we'll have to ask the public to exit at this point. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Oh, what you said. That's what you said.
You got to read it verbatim.
Oh.
Already got in.
Okay. So we reconvened after closed session, and the board gave the chair negotiating parameters for discussing an offer with a CEO candidate. Excellent. Thanks, Dave. Okay. Thank you. All right. Nice to meet you as well. Good to see you.